Good evening and welcome to the Board of Select meeting, February 3rd. We welcome you, and keeping with the agenda, Tina, do we have a warrant?
We do. We have a warrant for $1,544,225.84, of which the town payroll is $157,260.22.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Public comment. Tina?
I don't think it's premature to announce this, but Holliston's complete street policy was just accepted by Mass DOT. We earned a score of 89 out of a total of 100 points. 80 points was the minimum for moving on to the next tier or phase of the program. So what residents can expect is that the town will receive some technical assistance for developing a list of priority projects. These projects cover all modes of transportation, and public input will be important as we develop that project list.
Wonderful. Congrats to you and the planning board for working together.
Well, it goes to Sean Reese and the planning board, but yes, it's good news for sure.
John?
Just a quick note of thanks for the Holliston Food Pantry for sponsoring and pulling off the annual Super Bowl this weekend. Ms. Heine and I joined several other folks as guest servers for an exceptionally valuable and great time to raise money for the food pantry. I was just saying to you that, Chris, it looks like they turned the room over quite a couple of times, so I'd say they raised quite a lot of money for an excellent cause. Of note, Miss Sylvia Stickney was seen in attendance. So Steve gave her a nice opportunity to be heard. Always good to see Sylvia, so that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. And I would like to thank Mr. Ritter and his staff for doing a great job with quite a full plate. I don't think people realize just how much they're involved with everything from financing, being involved with the budgets, human resources, running the town hall, and any projects that might be had around the community. So there's a lot goes on in this town hall that people don't realize. So thank you, Jeff, and your staff.
Don't forget complaints.
And complaints you handle. But those you usually distribute. Thank you. Any other public comment from the audience? Anyone at all? You're welcome to come up and speak in the mic and tell us anything you want. No? All right. Report of the town administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There'll be a meeting on Wednesday of this week with our staff and our rating agency, Standards & Poor's, regarding the town's bond rating. That's on Wednesday morning. I think it's at 10 o'clock. Check my calendar about that. An update on the green communities. The third phase of this project has now been complete. Thanks to Chief Cassidy and Andrea Minahan and Chris Mayo. Over the last 3 years, the town has received in energy savings, and we have implemented $490,532.
Wonderful.
Almost to $500,000 in energy savings. So I'm cognizant that proclamations need to be prepared for them, as you had requested. I haven't done that yet. Okay. But now that we have concluded the third phase of the project, we're moving on to phase 4, which the application process will be starting imminently. Final project reports were submitted today to the state. So we're in absolutely great shape for that.
Terrific.
There was a meeting last Thursday with the solar field project at the landfill, and we met with our project consultant and representatives from Sol Systems. We discussed a short-term lease to allow them to do environmental assessments and also a public educational outreach program. The Mass Trails Grant, we received notification today, or last Friday actually, the town has been awarded $92,122 in a grant for the Upper Charles River Rail Trail for the parking project improvements in the Blair Square area.
The right behind Casey's there, I believe, right?
Yep.
Jeff, who's going to be the project manager?
We're working with Sean Reese and Karen Sherman to spearhead that project.
And Pete Barberry was in charge of the committee. He was chair.
She was
of that
involved,
committee.
yeah. So last Friday, we received a check for $100,000 from Pharmacanis. This is one of the growers of cannabis in Hopping Brook Industrial Park, and this is part of the host community agreement, and it's due every February. So we received a check for $100,000 to go into the general fund, and I'm pursuing other growers also on their status.
Excellent.
Last Friday, I also met with our new sustainabilities coordinator, Matt Zatek, I believe his name is, and he's doing very, very well, actually. He's very aggressive, and he's out there meeting with all kinds of people.
Excellent.
And I know he met with the superintendent of schools, he met with Colonial Power, who is our aggregator, and he's doing quite well. I asked him to try to meet with me every Friday
Okay.
to get an update, and he's on your agenda next Monday for an update for the board as to
Great.
what he's doing.
Thank you.
This Friday, we're meeting with McMahon Associates on our traffic improvements in the town center. As you recall, the board approved a $24,000 adjustment. And we're going to be meeting with them on Friday morning. I believe it's at 10 o'clock. And we're going to be looking at a timeline for implementing those adjustments.
And that 24,000 for those adjustments was in the original contract.
Correct.
So that's not
Well,
new money.
it's in the allocation of
Right.
monies.
And then the balance of that appropriated money then can be put into the general fund, I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to have a little bit of time for the dust to settle, continue to settle on the project, to see
Okay.
how these, in case there are further adjustments that need to be made.
Right. Okay.
I hate to return all of it back to the general fund, but I mean, yes, that's the direction we're headed.
Okay.
Finally,
And can you tell us approximately what that approximate amount will be that will be heading to the general fund eventually?
I don't have that, probably $50,000.
Okay, something along that line?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Finally, you'll be happy to hear that we've been having issues back here in the rear part of the building with the gutters,
Yes,
and that work will start tomorrow morning at 7:30 a.m. to
Excellent.
fix those.
great.
Okay, that's all I
Just
have.
two quick questions.
Yep.
I'm going to attend that McMahon meeting on
Good,
Friday.
thank
so
you.
that'll- Okay. And then, do you have an update from Ashland on the work that they're doing for the MOU, for the Memorandum of Understanding? Need to speak clearly. You have a captive audience here for the Animal Control Officer position.
I
They
know
were-
the police chief is working on that.
Okay.
I have not received an update from him.
Okay.
But I can actually send him an email tomorrow morning.
Because if I remember correctly, we were holding off on the budget
Yep.
that we were going to submit for the Animal Control Officer until we had the updated.
Well, the budget has been submitted with a mild 1% increase, which brings up to $38,380.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
But we are awaiting a contract
Yeah.
between the town of Holliston and Ashland to implement that and codify that agreement.
Okay.
But I
Any
have
questions for the town administrator?
No.
Anyone from the audience have any questions for the town administrator on any of these subjects? You're welcome to ask. Okay, thank you. Jeff, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have Indigenous People Day, and I understand we've got some representatives here. Would a couple of you like to come up and speak in the mic and tell us your proposal, please?
Come on up. Do you guys want to stand or do you want to sit?
Well, it's fine. We can all have an
All right, we're going to have you come over here then, guys. I'll move the chairs out of the way.
Right.
And then you can kind of come around like a horseshoe around here, and the mic will be right in the middle for you.
Great. Whenever you speak, just speak up into the mic there. And so, they would like to propose changing the current Columbus Day holiday to Indigenous Peoples' Day. Floor is yours.
Make sure you say your name, okay, first and last name.
Hi, I'm Sinead. Hi, I'm Ashita. I'm Ethan. I'm Emma. I'm Addie. I'm Nick. And I'm Ethan. Today we want to talk to you about a change we are trying to make in Holliston. In October, we celebrated Columbus Day by having no school. This is a very old holiday, but we think it should be changed. It was started in 1937 by the Knights of Columbus and other Italian leaders to celebrate Columbus's arrival to the America. They were proud of their heritage and wanted the whole country to honor it. We learned a lot about Columbus, and the truth is that he didn't discover anything. The lands we now call the Americas already had thousands of people successfully living here. Christopher Columbus and other European explorers were violent, stole natural resources, and brought slavery to the native inhabitants.
Many of us have Italian heritage. We are proud of our heritage, but we think that the day should be changed. Because even though he was a great sailor, he slaughtered many people, including the indigenous people. We also don't think it's fair to only honor the Italians. Even though Italy is great too, people from America come from many places other than Italy.
Instead of honoring the legacy of these men, we should be learning about and honoring the groups who are truly here first. So why should we change the holiday? Why not just eliminate it? The first people on this continent were the Native Americans. These are people truly worth honoring. They didn't waste any natural resources. For example, if they caught a fish, they would use every part of the fish, including the bones, skin, and flesh. They were grateful that their needs were met. If they killed an animal, they would thank their gods for the bounty.
At first, they welcomed European explorers and settlers, teaching them how to farm and where to find game. For example, Sacagawea helped Lewis and Clark explore the entire western continent, and the Wampanoag tribe helped the Pilgrims survive in the harsh weather. Native cultures are still around today and should be celebrated during this holiday.
When we thought about how unfair Columbus Day is, we wondered if others felt the same way, so we made a petition. We visited every classroom at Miller School and other neighborhoods. After our presentation, we got 153 students, teachers, and parents to sign our petition showing their support of making the change.
All around the United States, citizens are working to change Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day. In Maine, New Mexico, Vermont, Minnesota, Alaska, North Carolina, Hawaii, and South Dakota, some form of Indigenous Peoples Day is already celebrated. In 21 other states, Columbus Day has simply been eliminated. We want Holliston to join in with this movement. This would not only just change the name of the holiday, but also what we are celebrating. We hope that you take these ideas into consideration. Thank you for your time.
Questions?
I was going to ask if one of you could read the petition.
We don't
That's okay.
Oh, Mrs. Peters has it.
That's okay. Okay, you do have it.
We have it.
Would one of you be willing to read it, or would you like
I can.
one of us to read it? Okay, great.
Here you go.
By signing this petition, you show that you want the town of Holliston to officially recognize Indigenous Peoples Day on the day of Columbus Day, the second Monday of October. This will not just change the name of the holiday, but what we are celebrating. Indigenous people are the people who were here before the European explorers and were terrorized by Columbus. We should celebrate them because they were here first.
In recent years, many communities, towns, and cities and states in the USA have recognized and celebrating Indigenous Peoples Day. This is because most Americans have learned the truth about Christopher Columbus. He didn't discover anything. The lands we now call the Americas already had thousands of people successfully living here. Christopher Columbus and his crew were violent, murdered people, stole natural resources, tortured people, and brought slavery to the native inhabitants. This man should not be a national hero. Instead, we should be learning about and honoring the groups who are truly here first.
For this reason, we, the undersigned students of the Holliston schools, believe that as a community we should recognize and honor this long overlooked group, and we should no longer celebrate a man who treated others so badly and unfairly.
I have one more question. You guys did some research,
Yes, we did.
and you shared some of that research with the board.
Yes.
So I read some of it and listened to some of it as well. So can you tell me what it means to be an Indigenous person on Columbus Day?
It's would be like person who is different and would not like to be, how do you say, would not like to believe things that are not exactly true.
When we, in recent years, many people just believe that Columbus was a hero. He found America, but he didn't, and we're still celebrating it. And I think we should change it because now we know the true facts.
Yeah.
Questions, John?
No.
So, my question is, how can you still celebrate your home, the United States of America, and still call it the Indigenous People Day? Because it is kind of the start of what became the United States, right? So how do you do that?
Maybe start with the traditions they used, like the games they did,
Yeah.
wear costumes, just have fun. Maybe do
Yeah, like
parties at your house.
yeah, and like do some other like native traditions that they did, and like
Foods.
Maybe if you want to, like, just they were all in the nature. You could just like take a woods walk if you
yeah,
wanted
yeah,
to.
just take a woods walk.
So do you think that could be put into your write-up there? On how you would
Yeah.
celebrate the day?
Yeah.
Because we're still very proud to be Americans, right?
Yes.
Yes.
So it would be nice to have that written in there, how you would still celebrate.
Okay.
Okay.
You asked us to say our last names, but we never did. So did you want us to do that, or?
What do you think, guys?
I don't think we need
I
that.
think you're okay. I think you guys did a fantastic job.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And so, do we need a motion for that?
No, I don't think so.
Okay,
Take it under advisement.
okay. Very good.
Do you want to tell them that?
So we're going to take it under advisement and give it some real serious thought. I think that was really wonderful presentation that you came up with, and you spoke very well too. You were very prepared, so thank you very much. Next on the agenda is budgets. Finance Committee, if we could have someone come up, or both of you, both here, you both can come up. Sure.
Some big shoes
Oh, we do
to
have two
fill up
chairs.
here.
Good. Could you swing one of those over for Ben?
He's gonna stand. Just like, oh, they're all leaving us.
Thank you.
Nothing like the word finance to clear a room, huh?
Must be why no one comes to our meetings.
Touche.
So, thank you for coming and giving us an update or talk about anything you want to talk about. So, the floor is yours.
Mark, thank you. We saw Mark sent an email to Jeff, who in turn sent it to the members of the Finance Committee. And, well, we didn't have a vote because it was just sent out last Thursday. We felt as though, at least I did, to come to the meeting and talk to you about everything that was transpiring. I already reached out to everybody for both Tina and John. Didn't reach out to you. But I understand the concern that you had was the way Tina was treated, quote unquote, at the Finance Committee, and I can appreciate that. I think the rub or the issue the Finance Committee had, at least that's the sense I got, and Ben can correct me if I'm wrong, is that we weren't aware of anything going on. You are the liaison for the solid waste, and I am too. So this would come under the purview of the solid waste budget. Specifically, the issue for people in watching at home was Tina came to our meeting and we were told that there was a vote taken on about designing or segregating a certain portion of the town as a business section. And from there, the select board would actually go out and do some analysis. So it was the question or the concern the Finance Committee raised with Tina, maybe a little aggressively than we should have, was are we doing things before we even have talked about it? And we weren't aware of any of it. We knew you were talking about it, but we had mentioned at a previous meeting to Mr. Cronin that we wanted to get some idea of what other towns are doing, plus a rough idea of how Harvey, I was going to say, Republic, is actually going to charge us, at least for a rough. And so we just felt, I think the whole process, we need to kind of be looped in sooner than later when it comes down to money. Anything, and that's what I tell people in my organization, and now does it fall on deaf ears? Sometimes. But I hope in order for us to understand what's going on, there's resources, and like it or not, we have a zero-sum budget. So it's not like, hey, we can sell more widgets. We're not going to do it. We have so much we can spend. So if we take from Peter, we have to pay Paul. And so last week I read on the Holliston Reporter that there was going to be money we need to set aside, or at least consider setting aside, to help the Middlesex Retirement Board, because it seems like they're very underfunded. So we need to be aware of all these different things and weigh everything. And so that's, I think, so unless.
Sure, absolutely, and I would say that's why in my letter I asked for your liaison to start coming to our meetings again, so that you can talk directly with us when we're talking about policies.
Sure.
Obviously, we're going to talk about policy decisions before they come to your board for advisory. So it's helpful if you can have a representative here. I know some evenings you may say, I didn't need to go, but you know, if you're here, I think it would make a huge difference with communication with the folks back home, and also I think that you would help us with advice while we're creating policies. You can raise your hand and say, hey, but don't forget this, you know. And as you probably know, we can use all the help we can get here. So we would respect you to come to our meetings and to be engaged and ask questions.
Sure.
This particular policy about adding a business district was talked about a year ago or more. We had a lot of feedback from residents and small businesses that they felt they should be included. And they were included with the old contract. And so it was a very difficult period of time for Town Hall to go through, because we had a lot of unhappy people coming here week after week expressing their displeasure. So looking into whether or not to have a business district, we had said we would revisit that after the dust settles. And so after you know, a good 6 months, I think it was, Jeff?
Yep, 6 months.
We then went back to it to look at it. But of course, if there's going to be any new additional spending, it would have to be voted on at town meeting anyway.
Correct.
So we're certainly not making any definitive decisions, but we're looking into it because so many residents, you have no idea how many residents came here, were upset, and emailed and called Town Hall. And so our job as the select board is to listen to every resident, whether it might cost money or not. They're all important to us, and we need to listen to them. And it may be a pothole, and you'll see me out on the road because a resident called and said, I've been asking for this to be fixed for a long time. Will you please help me? So I will go do that. So it doesn't matter what it is. We're here to listen to the residents, and we may make a recommendation in an article for town warrant, but it may get voted down. We would most absolutely contact you first before we would put it on the warrant. But my whole point is that I'm getting a lot of phone calls and emails of the way communication is had with the Finance Committee and how they communicate to people that go to their meetings. And I have talked to your chairman about this a couple of times in private, and I've asked him to please, especially with municipal employees, department heads have complained to me too, there are laws that protect municipal employees from that type of behavior, and I just want to make sure that we're treating people with respect and not talking over them, and not, you know, so many people at once. yelling. How can you answer a question and even think straight when that goes on? So I really reaching out to you to please try to do a better job at that if you possibly can, because I hear it all from the residents, the department heads. Numerous department heads have complained to me, numerous volunteers. One of them said to me, I don't even know if I want to be a volunteer anymore, Mark. I've been doing this for 20 years for my town. I don't need this, they feel berated, even though we probably don't mean to do that. And I know that your committee does a great job of really crossing all the T's and dotting all the I's, and you have a hard job, and you're just trying to do the best job you can for this town. And so I commend you, because I mean, it is a lot of responsibility that you have, and you've got a great group of very intelligent people. But it got to the point where I had to speak up. So I hope you understand that from my perspective.
I do, but I don't want to really opine on something. Ken's not here as the chair, because that's his call of how he manages the meeting.
Right.
I mean, I try to personally be respectful of the people coming before me and the board.
Yeah, and I to reiterate, we came here on our own. We're not, we haven't had a meeting about this from the finance committee's perspective. But I'm sure everybody would reiterate what Vin has been saying. We apologize. We don't mean to be disrespectful if that is the impression that's being given. I'm sorry, Tina. I felt I was out of line at times too, and I try not to be, and I was disappointed in how I got it. Yeah, I felt I did too. I got out of hand last week, but
I think that the issue for the experience was the experience that I reflected back on was that I went in good faith, and I went anticipating that there would be trust in the process that we engage in here at the select board meetings and so on, and the deliberation, the discussion is thoughtful and deliberative. And so I went in good faith, and I went assuming that the trust was there, that the process happens as I know it to happen here. I would not say in that moment it was reciprocated, and I'll just leave it at that. However, I think tonight is a demonstration that there's plenty of opportunity to develop that trust and have that good faith attempt back and forth to communicate clearly, and I appreciate that, and I would only look forward at this point. So thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just add one thing regarding, well, maybe it'll be longer than one. You mentioned you've been hearing a lot of different things. Now, I can appreciate that, but I think it's a difference between dealing with potholes and changing a whole scope of a budget and a service, and which is what you're talking about with the solid waste. And I think it's indicative, or I think it's important for the liaisons, not necessarily the people who are attending the meetings, but the liaisons are there to reach out to them, and then the two liaisons for the FinCom and the whoever it is on the select board to say, okay, this is what it is, and then we can discuss, well, because you don't necessarily have all the different information that's coming down the pike, especially, this is only one board out of 7 or 6.
And in this particular case, we are still waiting from
No, I
information
know,
from
and that
Mr.
was
Renner,
probably
so-
the thing I mentioned, I think I mentioned to both John and Tina, was the vote being formalized. Well, it was kind of more, we're actually doing this, as opposed to, well, we worked out all the different issues. That was the feeling, I think, in the room, and maybe I'm misquoting everybody that was there, at least in the FinCom. So it leads to several things that happened in the fall. This board is taking movements before talking about the whole budget process. We can disagree, and you can end up putting it on the as a warrant, but it should be discussed. That's what I'm reaching. So I think it's, so that we're not tying down both boards, it's important that the liaisons work together and say, okay, this is what I'm thinking, and what do you think? And then if we have to, we get the solid waste committee or the recycling committee or the other subcommittees together, so that trying to get 7 and now 10 people together is a nightmare, so.
Yeah, I'm sure. And once we got the financial information from Jeff, who worked on some of it last week, about neighboring communities and what they're doing, and once we got the financial information, then we'd engage with you, but we don't have anything to talk about as far as cost.
Right.
And we haven't finalized whether it'll even be on the warrant until we find out all this information. But absolutely, you can rest assured we will be engaged.
Yeah, I think, you know, it seems like we're just trying to figure things out a little bit, the communication between our boards.
Mhm.
And, you know, I think, unfortunately, we're having a little, you know, it's a little friction but I think we'll get through it. We'll look forward and we'll continue to communicate and to, you know, to find ways to figure it out, solve problems, to talk about what's going on and things like that.
Absolutely.
Whether it's, you know, it's a phone call, whether it's coming to meetings, whatever it needs to be to make sure that happens.
Yeah.
And, you know, the tricky thing is sometimes is that because we represent, you know, we're part of a board, so
Right.
sometimes, like, you know, speaking, we can't really speak on behalf of the finance committee, so we talk about it, and then, you know, sometimes if you're talking about it at the time, you're putting the cart before the horse, because we can't talk about it before we
Right.
talk about it.
And you have a lot more people on your board, so it makes it a little more difficult to
Right.
share information sometimes, I'm sure, so
Yeah.
forth.
So I think we'll get there. I think we just need to keep talking. We need to keep having these dialogues and things like that, and I think
Well,
we
that's-
look forward to the next few
And
months.
we would really look forward to, like I say, if you could have somebody come to our meetings,
Mhm.
because then I think we would have healthy conversations that then you could bring to your meeting on Tuesday and share, and,
Sure.
you know, it would be very current.
Mhm.
I think that might be helpful, so we would encourage that.
Thank you.
So,
And I think we have to pause and say, hang in there, Ryan, it'll be okay. Because he's the next budget who's coming up to
Questions,
present, so.
Yes, I have a few things to say. Over the last year or so, I think as I sit in this seat, I've observed the strong personality issues between the boards, and I think it's played out to some extent in some of the town meeting votes and conversations about topics. And part of my brain thinks that that's really good. I mean, we should be an engaged body, and we should very vociferously debate issues, and I think that's good. I did observe, and I think as colleagues, we observed we could do better in our communication as we got through this fall town meeting. I took it upon myself, and I believe Ms. Hine and yourself have done the same, to reach out to committee members and try to establish good working relationships. I go as liaison to the Finance Committee. I go to their meetings virtually every week. I was not there last week, and I'm sorry I won't be there tomorrow night. I have another engagement. But just the same, I try to take that message, Mark, that way, right? At least once a week, fill them in. And as Vince said, he had a notion of what we were talking about with regard to this solid waste issue, which, you know, for the folks at home, don't get hung up on the solid waste issues. That was a symptom. And what I observed on television, watching it, unfortunately, was that the topic kind of triggered something that was bubbling with the Finance Committee from the department head salary debate last fall. And that's where some of their mindsets took off. And so I think that's where, you know, to reiterate what Mark's saying, I would argue we're all better off when we can do more listening, and I think that's something I always try to practice. So I want to say, for the record, since the fall, I've reached out to several members of the Finance Committee. Having been a former member, a big part of my heart goes to that committee. I know what you do. It's hard. And I think I've gotten to know you, Ben, very well. I've worked with you on a couple of projects.
Mm-hmm.
And Mr. Murphy, town folks should be impressed by these folks. They're really good at what they do. And others on the Finance Committee. It's a great group of people, and I think we just have to find the proper civil ground to continue our dialogue. I think Vin said it right. We don't always have to agree. In fact, we probably won't.
right,
There needs to be that check and balance between what they do and what we do.
right.
But I'm all for civility and the ability to talk things through. In fact, I think I spoke to you, was it Wednesday or Thursday, after the Tuesday meeting, and
Yeah.
we walked through the matter involving the solid waste issue, and it took them all of about a minute to sort of realize that that really wasn't such a big deal in the grand scheme of things. But when you wrap it all up into what your board's thinking was, it triggered something. And I think those are the things that we've got to get to the root cause on and put it out there for people to discuss. Because I actually respect every member of your committee. I know you do a hard job. So just accept my willingness to keep going and keep working.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else?
No.
Okay.
And I know you'll call too. I'll try to call you tomorrow then.
I think our
Well,
budget's
thank you
level
very
funded,
much
too.
for coming
Thank you.
and spending some time with us tonight.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Much appreciated.
Ryan.
Ryan from the Conservation Commission.
Is there a finance committee budget that we approved?
No.
No,
So that's an independent audit board.
Yeah.
I see.
funded anyway.
Floor is yours, sir.
All right, so this budget request for FY21 was approved by the Conservation Commission at the most recent meeting on January 21st, 2020.
Oh, Ryan, could you just tell the folks back home your
Oh.
full name and your position?
Ryan Clapp, Conservation Agent for the Conservation Commission. So for FY21, the Finance Committee provided guidelines for a 1% departmental budget increase across the board. So for the Conservation Commission, this would be a $540 increase from FY20 to FY21. After implementing all reasonable cost-saving measures, our proposal is a 1.59% increase, or an increase of $859, which is $319 over guideline. So going through line by line, administrative salaries, this was after the department had negotiations back in June 2019. I was established as an M2 employee. Based on a 40-hour-a-week schedule, this was a salary of $57,667, but I'm a 35-hour-a-week employee, so scaled down to 35, that's a $50,459, which is a 1.62% increase from that allotted in FY20. Clerical salaries, it's a one-person department, so no clerical salaries, and been in this position almost 2 years, so not eligible for longevity. As far as professional services go, proposing to keep that line item the same at $1,050. That's mostly for lawyer fees, if there's a contentious project, or we need some professional advice on looking over deeds or conservation restrictions. For communications, there's a proposed increase of just under 10% there. So that increase reflects that there is a potential change in the state regulation for the Wetland Protection Act, which would require any copies of permits to be sent to Mass DEP certified mail return receipt. So assuming that's an extra $15, $20 a week, every other week we meet, so probably about 23 meetings a year, counting for incidentals. That's an increase of about $350. Also this year, we cut one of the phone lines because changed to a one-person department. So that's why it's not a $300 increase. Office supplies, I scaled that down to match what the planning board, what their office supply request was at $250. We operate just about pretty similarly, so similar needs. Educational supplies, I reallocated that into professional development because at its core, that's pretty much professional development. Expenditures in the past have gone not from that educational supplies, but to the professional development. And this is the only department that even has a educational supplies line item. So professional development changed that proposed to change from $1,500 to $1,600. So that mostly goes for our dues to the Massachusetts Association of Conservation Commissions or the Massachusetts Society of Municipal Conservation Professionals, which have fairly expensive dues on top of conferences, which each conference is about $200. So overall, that's a change of 1.59% increase, so slightly over the 1% guideline.
Do you think you could do a budget to stick within the 1 point guideline and then use this as a recommendation so that you're in compliance with what has been asked with the Finance Committee?
It would be difficult, especially considering the department head adjustment, because just about 80% of this budget is the salary line item. And so an increase of 1.62 doesn't leave a lot of wiggle room for any other cuts.
Brian, can I ask you,
Yeah.
if you mentioned this in your opening remarks, it got by me, forgive me. Why is the salary going up?
Because with the, this was based off of what was allocated last year before the department head negotiations with the contracts, based on what was voted on in town meeting.
So
Was it May?
So the amount of 49,657 was not your FY20 contract? Is that what you're saying? It should be.
My FY 20 contract was 459.
Okay, we have an issue here. So it was my understanding that the budgets that went out were to have put the contracted amounts from FY20 in that line, and then they don't grow for FY21. Go ahead, Vin.
It was suggested and recommended by the chair that we have to do what was approved by town meeting, and the line items that were approved, the previous budgets, all these expenses are going, additional revenue or additional expenses go in different line items. So it's what was approved at town meetings, what being shown. That's new because it wasn't happening, and somebody on the committee recommended it. Ken, I believe, said to Sharon that night last week to start doing it, to show the budget as it was approved by at town meeting. So that's why you're seeing a difference.
So in order for department heads to gain their FY20 contractual level with no growth in FY21, how does the Finance Committee plan to adjust for that?
I'm not sure exactly. What are you saying, to stay at the 1% bottom line, or are you saying no growth?
Yeah,
I
there's
think
no.
it's more of a discussion point.
Because the difference is that because the salary adjustments haven't actually been allocated to the departments yet.
Mm-hmm.
They're still in the benefits line.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, to what Vin is saying, is that to try to get the approved amount for town meeting, and then there would be, there's an adjustment difference, and we have not discussed how that adjustment would take place. There is no mechanism.
So to summarize real quick, Vin, there was a bit of a shift from the planning that was originally thought of to what is happening.
There was confusion of what was, well, yes and no, because I think the idea was, hey, we're going to keep the budget what it is. There's going to be no increases for the staff who received a large increase. Now, how it was being presented on these reports is a different matter.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's correct. I mean, we have to report what was voted on at the town meeting. This is the budget. This was approved by town meeting. And it's going to roll it up, and they're going to see, okay, these are increases. I think we'd be doing a disservice to the town if we showed them something different.
So what would you recommend for Ryan to do based on what he's just told us?
He's in good shape, actually.
I wasn't really listening, to be honest. It was like listening bits and pieces, so I'm the type of guy who's visual.
He's 1.5 something over.
5.9, yeah.
But what's happening is
Yeah.
because he's not meeting the 1%, because it's showing the increase
Yeah.
to his
And I
salary.
think,
Right.
well, the whole feeling, the sense I was getting, this is the number, these are the guidelines, make, what would you cut to get to the 1%? If that's what it is, understanding, is that gonna be fair, is that gonna be realistic? I don't know, but that's a discussion point. So that was the general feeling when we made the guidelines. And the discussion, it was a long drawn-out discussion considering, was, hey, this is what it is, it's a 1%. What are you gonna do? If you had to cut everything, what is gonna end up realistically? Now, is it fair? I don't know, but at the same time, we made it across the board. And it's a discussion point, if you ask me.
Yeah, so I think he's done quite well. I mean, if he's just living with his FY20 salary adjusted, then he's below one. He's right at 1% growth, pretty much, right?
Yeah, I
If
think,
not below it.
not factoring in that, I think I
You might
saw
come
it was like
below
1.01 or something.
Okay.
So I think he's in good shape, and I would make a recommendation, unless you have any questions, Tina.
Nope, I do not.
To approve the proposed Conservation Commission.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ryan.
And what else? I think that's it for budgets, right? Okay. Pinecrest Clubhouse update. And this is the chairman of the committee who's looking into possibly doing some renovations at the Pinecrest Clubhouse. And we wanted to find out what the committee's been working on.
Hello.
Hey, how are you?
Wyatt.
Hi. Good. Good.
Jay?
Hey. I think it's going to be a pretty brief update because we haven't done anything since the town meeting. Right. We had a fun meeting with the finance committee. And then when we saw what happened at the town meeting, we landed on we're going to hand off our artifacts to Deb and the golf course committee. I always get the two confused. I mean, we will basically...
Advisory committee.
Yeah, whatever they're calling it. So we're going to provide all of the content, all the financial analysis we did. And I think that the next prudent step would be that it's like a triad. You'd probably want to have the select board plus Deb and her crew and the finance committee kind of get together and get on the same page. And I think Deb and her team are up to speed on what we put together, and we've been kind of walking in lockstep the whole way, all the way through the recommendation.
And the recommendation, if I recall, will consider that the golf course revenue would pay for the renovations itself.
It would pay for the renovations and continue to return funds to the town.
So you wouldn't be asking for funds from the town?
Well, yeah.
Initially.
So I want to be careful because it's been, right? Correct. Yeah, so, because this is one conversation that came up when we met with the finance committee.
So it would be a bond that we would...
That's right. The town is on the hook for the money, right?
Right.
They're backing the bond. But what we're saying is based on if you take today's current productivity from the facility, you would be able to cover it and still have money left over for some additional improvements. But the other side of it is that when you listen to Deb Moore, right, they want to also put money into the course itself because historically they're way behind.
Right.
So the option to basically extend the kitchen, get more storage, and basically just kind of upgrade the facility to get, another 10, 20 years out of the kitchen is what we were proposing.
Jay, can you tell us, remind us, how much longer we have for the existing bond?
I think it was around 2 years.
2 years?
Or a year and a half,
Okay.
2 years. I
Okay.
forget at this point.
Okay.
Coming up too, sure. It's one of the shortest ones.
Okay.
That's right. Yeah,
And that was how many year bond that was?
20.
20? 20? Yeah.
that
Okay.
sounds right.
It's amazing how time flies. Wow. Okay. Any questions, Tina?
No, I don't have any questions at all. Maybe just I would summarize what you're saying, which is that the golf course advisory committee is going to pick up where the Pinecrest Clubhouse committee leaves off. Is that what you're
Exactly.
saying?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
John?
I supported this project in the fall. I thought that it was a great investment for the asset, relatively cost neutral. I thought we left it after Mr. Robinson's fine presentation. I think it was in October, maybe late September. Late September it was.
Yeah, it's all a blur. Yeah.
And then I heard things went sideways at the Finance Committee, and they did not see what we saw in terms of presentation, the value of the content. Consequently, it wasn't recommended, I believe, by the Finance Committee for the fall town meeting. So to the extent that the Golf Course Advisory Committee can take up the matter and have another look at it as, on behalf of their interests and their cash flows, I'd be interested in hearing from them before they get to the Finance Committee.
I think the next time, that's why I mentioned Triad, because when we had that meeting with the Finance Committee, we had expected someone from the Select Board to be there. And I think the next conversation should be with all three parties, because some of the challenges, I mean, I think my impression was that the Finance Committee did look at the analysis, but I was literally sitting in the middle of this table for an hour and a half, and on one side of the table I had one Finance Committee member say that the land is worth, the most, we should consider selling the course, and then said, I don't really mean that, and mentioned it about 5 or 10 more times. And then another individual on the other side of the table said, why should we spend any money on the clubhouse? Because if the clubhouse brings in, let's say, $30,000 a year, but it's costing like 40 to 50 to fix it, why don't we just let it run its course, and when the clubhouse wears out, we just close it up, which is not really logical for a clubhouse. So that's why I'm saying I think some of it is, and we've talked about this, is like, what is the vision for the clubhouse? What's the vision for the property? And then I think that alignment within that triad, you guys, like you said, you get smart people on the golf course. I mean, these guys are just quoting what the life of the bond is off the top of their head. So I think there needs to be alignment on what's the mission of the facility and what does the town want to do with it, and then everything else will just, like, it'll just fall into place. And you've got all the cost detail to at least say, all right, we feel comfortable to go out to bid.
And if I'm remembering the conversation from the fall, the Finance Committee was looking for more financial information, and to Jeff's credit, he did then pull Bill Harrison into the loop and ask for monthly reports, which we've been getting on the
For New England Golf?
Yeah, right,
okay.
On the number of rounds. And we do have some reports, although I'm not sure how consistent they are at this point, from Mike Fico on revenue from the restaurant as well. So I think that addresses one of the concerns that was raised by the Finance Committee back when the article was being...
There's actually, interestingly enough, really two liaisons to the Golf Course Advisory Committee. I reached out to Deb Moore in the fall after town meeting and asked her some questions and said we'd kind of follow up with her. And we will follow up with her because we had some questions like that. Okay. I don't remember them off the top of my head because I wrote it in October. The email, but there were some questions because there was some language in the contract about audits and things like that, and have we done some, and just sort of just understand a little bit more in depth of what the financials look like. And I think Jay did a great job putting together the proposal in the first place. I think that we just had some I think part of the challenge is that the Finance Committee hadn't had a lot of interaction with the Golf Course Advisory Committee, so there was a lot of getting up to speed on what the financial model was. Right. And I think, because I know that was the case for me, that I didn't really understand how does this model work, who's paying what, how does the clubhouse, it was a little bit complicated, so I think there was a little bit of a disconnect trying to just figure out how this thing works for the town. And I think that was part of the process, and so there was a lot of questions that were thrown out, and I think it was a little bit confusing in some respects, but we've reached out to them to try to figure some of that stuff out. And
they haven't reached back. That's our frustration right now. And
okay. Yeah, we'll follow
I think
up
instead of the board, I think you have to leverage the liaisons. So I'm not sure who's the liaison. Okay.
Well, yeah. So I haven't talked to Deborah in probably a month or so, but after we met with the FinCom, and there was a lot of conversation, I had said, hey, can we just send an email to us, and at least to Deborah and myself with the questions. and I never saw an email, and I don't think
I can
Deborah
forward it
did.
to you. If I didn't.
You said it to
so
Deb,
I'll
okay,
do it.
okay, so she's got it, so like that's step one, and then I think with, especially the two of you guys, meeting with, Deb and her team, they'll walk you through, you know, what they're thinking. I mean, I think it's a prime opportunity to, like the gentleman that was up before, you're talking about like a couple $1,000s here and there. This property has been a revenue center, a profit center of between 60 to 100 grand to the town for 15 to 20 years. So, you know, it's not just an asset like you were talking about, a space that the town could leverage for multiple reasons. It's a profit center. When you're talking about 1% profit increases, I think it's a good time to revisit it. And the other piece of it, like I think Ben mentioned, is the contract. Because, sorry, I think you got to think about when the next bid comes out, how do you get more money from the property, right? For every dollar that you want to raise for the town, the way the current contract's structured, Mike has to sell, I think it's $8 of food. It's highly leveraged in the wrong direction in terms of generating revenue. So I think it's a good time, like if the teams can huddle together to figure out, all right, what can we do from a cost perspective, looking at the bond rating, and then also putting together the strategy, because Mike has a 3-year contract with the opportunity for the town to extend it another 2 years.
2 years, yeah.
So I think that's why I go back to the triad, because especially what I saw is with Deborah and Bill and Mike, they huddled on something there was a lot of back and forth. They literally get together and come up with a very creative idea in one meeting. So when you look at what she was able to do with one conversation, I think that you can get Mike what he's looking for. I think the town can get more revenue, and it'll give the finance committee a little bit more confidence to endorse the town taking on more debt.
All right. Ben, after you've talked with Deb Moore and Jeff, if you do want to set up a meeting after that, and you want one of us to be there, John, I think John was the liaison, just let us know. We'll absolutely do anything we can do to help out.
Okay.
Awesome.
All right?
Yeah, and I'm not going anywhere. Still live in town, so
Yeah.
we'll do another handoff with Deb. You know, Ben, you know how to find me, so if you got questions.
Because, you know, we're getting closer and closer to town meeting, so if you do want to do something, we better get going.
It's not, yeah, that's what I'm saying, is it's not us. At this point, it's, and it makes sense that it goes back to the golf committee. I think we were able to give it the focus that
Yes,
it
sir.
needed, so it's up to you.
I believe we're upon the deadline for the closure of the town warrant, Mr. Ritter.
I think it's on Thursday.
And I observed the listing of articles that you provided us, and I don't see this on there. So I'm wondering,
Nothing.
Mr. Chairman, if you think we should put a placeholder in
Let's
there.
put a placeholder in,
So,
and
do
then
you
we can.
require a vote for
and if
that?
it doesn't,
Nope. I can
if
just
it
put
doesn't
in.
work out, it can always be removed, but
Okay.
I think
Thank
we
you.
should try to get it done if we can,
Awesome.
because it takes time for getting a bond and everything, and the other bond is almost up, so.
Right.
When you're figuring out the finance, don't forget to figure in if you have one more year of the existing bond, because that would mean the town may have to chip in, and that's something the finance committee needs to know, so.
No. No, this would come from the revenue stream that's generated by the golf revenue.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
their revenue stream is paying for the existing bond that we have right now.
Yeah, so this
And
is
if you
above and
throw,
beyond that.
and if you throw in
I
another one.
recall the model you gave accounted for that.
Did you account for an overlap, is what I'm getting at?
Yeah, if I,
I believe it did.
Okay, as long as you did.
either way, it's a year. What I'm looking at is with the finance committee, I think they'd figure it out. And we gotta put it out to bid to make sure that the rates that we,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? You gotta get it out to bid before, otherwise it's a lot of just, right?
Okay.
That's
All
correct.
right.
Cool.
Thanks, Jim.
So in terms of, we have some cleanup to do, some housekeeping from cleaning up meeting minutes, what have you, hand off to the other committee, and then we're gonna basically disband.
Okay.
So, do we need to come in and, or is this just a matter I just email you, Jeff? or
Yeah,
do
when
we have to-
when you're ready to disband, let me know.
Okay, but we don't need to come in and, all right, no, all right,
I
good.
don't think so.
All right, I'll let you know.
All right.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
you.
Okay, Blair Square, committee update. Mr.
Update.
How are we doing?
Marvelous, how are you?
Great. I've been seeing a lot of pictures on Facebook. You seem to be enjoying your retirement.
Oh, yes, Kevin Conley, 44 Cranberry Lane, retirement. Blair Square, there's two sides to Blair Square. I'm sure you've all seen, this has been around for over a year.
Right,
That's the Casey side, the parking lot.
right.
Uh,
Yep, we're familiar with that.
We've gone through the process. GLM and Joyce Hastings in the process of developing a plan for the town, so we can go out to bid.
Right.
We have state approval for about $93,000, I believe, with the matching funds of around 30, in that range.
Yep.
So that's all progressing, and there's some, when you get with the government stuff, there's fine minutia you have to
Yeah.
dot the i's and cross the
Yeah.
t's. I think
Yeah.
that's
Takes a while.
99% done. The easement should be signed by the Casey side any moment.
Excellent.
I'm surprised it hasn't happened already. And so once that happens,
This is going to be a major improvement for our town.
oh, big time.
You know, this is a very highly used area, and, you know, it's not really that safe the way it is right now. As you know, there's no delineation, and people just walk, and people
It's the social
drive
center
all
of
over
the
the
town,
place, and
basically.
it's an accident waiting to happen, so I'm so
So once that
glad.
goes up, there's going to be, the trail will be defined. There'll be a barrier or a fence that looks nice
Right.
with parking that comes in at an angle, goes out the other way.
Yeah.
And I believe the Board of Select has changed the access of the,
Yes, we did.
out to the street,
Yeah.
which is nice, making it all that much easier. So all that's coming, and there's some minor details about rounding the corners to the,
Anyone from the audience
Which is
want to
easy.
take a picture or take a look at this? You're welcome to. We've seen it, so. Sorry, go ahead, sir.
so all that side is going nice, and I'm expecting to get the plans from GLM shortly, very shortly, and then we'll go out to bid and get that done. Any questions on that side?
No?
Can you go out to bid before the easement is finalized?
Yeah.
Okay. And then do you, I think we talked about it earlier, I can't remember if we were going to ask you when you came up or put it off or something else. Do you know who the project lead will be?
Probably Peter,
Barbieri?
yes.
Well,
From us?
my question was on the town side.
Okay.
Who's
Sure.
managing the resources, the money, the contract?
Sean
Yeah, you're right.
said
The
one.
volunteer side would probably be Peter.
Okay.
but Mr. Ritter thinks.
Sean
it'll be-
Reese and Karen Sherman, I think
Yes.
are going to be the key ones on the town side.
Yes, and Karen Sherman's been very helpful,
Mhm.
very, very helpful in this whole thing, making sure the proper government stuff has been done.
Yeah.
She's been wonderful.
She's excellent.
Excellent, absolutely excellent.
You have till December 31st, 2021 before the funds, the grant money needs to be, so all work has to be completed by December 31st,
Yes.
2021. Do you guys have a tentative
All will be done way before then.
Oh, way before, we're hoping this year.
timeline? Okay.
We're hoping this year. But like, once we get that done, we're gonna go out to bid and hopefully get it done in the spring. That would be lovely, but government stuff has a tendency to go slower sometimes. The other side of Blair Square, that we've been discussing. We had a meeting last week, but we didn't get enough people to show up, so it was not a good meeting. And what we're looking at that one is, we discussed taking the trail as it comes into Blair Square and looping it around and back down. Serves two purposes. It slows down bicycles from flying through the street a little bit, and it'll open up a space more or less for people to congregate in. If we ever want to have some sort of a show down there, or a meeting down there,
Beginning of a race.
concert down there, or something like that. We've also discussed putting some bathrooms in. As you go down the street, there's that left-hand turn that goes out to the road. Talking to people. I go down there all the time. When I talk to people about, what are you doing? What do you like about it? What don't you like about it? I talk to the businesses, D&M Auto Parts, Casey's, CVS, Coffee Haven, and they all have one thing in common. They want bathrooms. D&M Auto Parts, who has moved out, every single day, they're getting constantly asked to use the bathrooms. I have mothers who have the children in carriages. There's a lot of those.
Yeah,
They would like a bathroom with a changing table down in the area. So we're looking at putting one in, and the idea would be to get it temporarily done, like maybe those blue things, those blue porta potty type of thing.
but a
See-
nicer one.
Yeah, see how that goes as a start, with the thought of, would it go into a full-time building? Of course, with that goes, who's gonna take care of it? So that's, the start is the blue porta potties, which would be under contract, and see how that goes and see where that takes us.
And they come and empty them regularly.
Yeah, on a regular basis. So that would be nice. And I believe you're aware that we're gonna hopefully get the brush cleared out down to the bridge.
I was promised,
I was too.
so I'll lean on them.
Okay, good, and that would be nice. And the first night, the trail was underwater in Blair Square.
That's what I heard.
Yeah, it was awful. So once we get it done, we'll have to somehow raise it, drain it,
Yeah.
and make some adjustments to that. We've had some great plans drawn up that are still tentative. Herb Brock is gonna go down some Saturday morning and put markers all over the place so we can visualize where the road's gonna go, what's gonna be the big space and so forth. That's being discussed. Hopefully, with some good weather in the next 2 Saturdays, hopefully that will be done. We're also discussing like a gazebo-like structure. The one we have now, it's lovely.
Yeah,
But if one person goes in there, no one else goes in there.
right.
And if you go up to Washington Street, on Highland Street, see that house with that 4-poster? Should borrow that, put it down at Green Street, because that's beautiful. And that would encourage people to come in from all angles,
Right, right.
sit around, and be much more popular.
Right.
But we have to find a proper use for the other one if that goes that way.
Right, right.
So it's all developing, everyone has their thoughts, and we seem to be going to a common direction.
Yeah.
Will there be a public meeting? It sounds like you're not 100% complete on the design
There
yet.
will be a public meeting.
Okay, great.
They're all public,
A display of the plans?
Yes.
For the public to review?
yes,
Okay.
yes, hopefully we'll have one of those.
Before 100% completion?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
We're gonna get our focus on what we'd like. And I think we're a lot closer than we have been. Once we all come to after the Herb sets up the display, we'll look around, we'll see what it's looking at, we'll come to a head, and then we'll have a public meeting for input into the meeting. But we have well represented in the committee, so
Yeah.
it's nice.
Okay.
So that's going well. Any questions on that side? Yes, sir.
I don't believe you were at the meeting that the committee attended back on June 17th, Kevin. I'm looking at the meeting minutes and I don't see your name, so I don't know if you were there. I don't remember you here when that committee came to, Jamie Erickson was here, Inga Daniels was here, Peter was here.
Yes, Jamie retired from the committee.
The,
They made me
the committee
chairperson.
made its presentation of the layout of the land. I recall some of the design features you're talking about tonight, including have an amphitheater, concept, stone raised seating and so
Yeah,
forth.
that's not going too well, the amphitheater.
There was a lot of discussion about some of the factors, including the layout of the property. Mr. Barbieri presented the fact that the town could be the recipient of a free caboose that could be put on site and a free septic system installed to go with it. That night or that afternoon or whenever that meeting was held, there was a consensus and support for the trolley bathroom concept from this
That was
board.
voted down by 100% of the board.
Is that right?
About 3 months ago.
Well, this board didn't think that way.
Oh, well, it was a big caboose that a fellow who owns the industrial park in Hopi and Brook
Right,
wanted to
we saw the
donate to the
concept. He
town.
gave us a drawing of what it looked like.
Right, and there was the caboose that came out of the park down south there, Canopy Lake,
Yeah,
Edaville Railroad,
right.
and it's gone somewhere else. So it's no longer available.
Oh, is that right?
Correct. But just to let you know that Peter missed one night of the meeting and nobody wanted the caboose on the entire board.
But they heard from us on June 17th that this board did.
Oh,
And one would think that our opinion trumps that, I would think.
Well, I think we said that we were in favor of bathrooms, and possibly the caboose.
There was consensus and support for the trolley bathroom concept.
Yeah. The issue was that the trolley was huge and out of scale with the property. It's not a very big property, and so
Well-
their committee looked into other types of bathrooms, which was supported by the committee.
No, that's not my recollection, Mark. We
No,
talked
I mean,
about.
since that meeting.
Okay, well, this is the first time we're hearing from the Blair Square Committee since June 17th, so I'm just trying to pull back
Yeah.
what's happened. If you're privy to details, good on you. But my recollection was we talked about the length from Central Street all the way down to the bridge.
Right.
And that was going to be fully developed, and there was some conversation about pushing the caboose further back into the wooded area towards the bridge so it didn't dominate the landscape towards Central Street.
Well, the land, you look at it, tails off. It wouldn't even fit further down to the bridge.
Well,
It's too much slope.
Inga was going to give us new drawings to reflect how it would be sited. And there was talk, I believe, about site construction to accommodate it,
Oh,
Kevin, so.
I don't know, but the bathroom idea went well. That's well received. The caboose idea was not well received.
So the caboose is gone?
Gone.
No longer available
longer
to
available.
the town of Holliston?
Correct.
Okay. Because the caboose, in that conversation, in that context, served as a place to put a permanent bathroom. And that conversation was that the caboose could be, I feel so silly saying that over and over again, but that structure could be the site for the bathrooms that were then linked to the septic system that would give a permanent bathroom. And then the
Right.
business that would operate out of the caboose would be responsible for maintaining the bathroom. And that was presented as a win-win arrangement, but the caboose is gone.
Yeah, well,
And-
once you
okay.
put the caboose in, you got to put handicap accessibility into it. Then you have to put handicap accessibility into the train, into the caboose. And then you have to have the septic system put in. They were hoping somebody would volunteer to
Right.
put a septic system in maintenance. The cost would have been crazy.
And
Mr.
so now,
Barbarian, I'm sorry to cut you, Mr. Barbarian told us that that evening, Kevin, that had already been secured for free.
Unknown to the rest of us in the committee.
They were here that night.
I don't recall everyone saying they were hoping that somebody would volunteer to pay for it. But it was never definitive, as best of my knowledge.
Hang on a second. Peter Barberi said there is an idea of using a former caboose and converting it to bathrooms as part of a long-term solution. In addition to this donation, others have pledged $75,000 to help the project. So that was all made known to the Blair Square Committee that
Yeah.
day.
Sorry.
Now, Jamie has resigned. Do you have problems getting quorums for this? Are there
No,
active
just once.
members?
Yes, some people couldn't make a meeting.
Okay. But
It's the
otherwise,
first
you
time it's
have
ever happened.
adequate number of members right now to
Yeah.
carry forward? Very good.
So we're one away from that one.
Okay.
But it appears to be going nice, and everybody's in favor of keeping the canopy there, the tree canopy, because it's a nice
Yeah.
area for the shade.
One of the plans had some of the trees being taken down, and that was not well received.
No, didn't go.
those meeting minutes, do they also have the comments from Ed Daniels, who is a realtor, who had concerns about residents? It sounds like you've reached out to the residents in the neighborhood in terms of, so I believe you spoke up with
did,
concerns
you're right.
about the placement of a bathroom and the impact of that on the neighbors. So it sounds like the conversation's also moved away from a permanent structure for now to a temporary structure.
That's all part of it, where it's gonna
Okay.
work in.
Okay. I mean, all the more reason, right, for a public meeting where people can have a look at the designs before they're 100% complete and give feedback. Because I imagine you're going to hear that, continue to hear the concerns over a blue porta potty within eyesight
Well,
of,
they're talking about putting a wooden box
Yeah,
around it.
right,
I've seen
right.
them before.
yeah, it's a
And
privacy.
the
or
handicap
something.
accessibility, it's at ground level, so there's no ramp system to
Right.
build up.
And is it
Right.
still the idea of a
Be a
concrete
little more
pad that you would put
conducive
these on?
for
That was
handicap.
brought up at that, so you weren't at
It's a
this meeting, but
possibility.
that was at that meeting.
It's been talked as a possibility,
Yeah.
if it'll be needed or not.
Okay.
And then over the summer, the plan that originally we had was coming straight through like it does now. Then the committee decided to do the loop, which I think made a lot of sense.
Slows down bicycle traffic from cutting through.
Yeah.
In a bigger meeting
it'll
area.
give you more space, because it really is like a park feel there.
There was a memorial too, I believe, on
And
that,
there's a
the veteran.
memorial.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
another piece, for
So
sure.
Oh, yes, they were here a
Changing
couple of months ago for that, remember?
The trail to have a loop will allow you to
Gather.
have a much better
Yeah.
place,
Yeah.
and safer too.
Yeah, the notes indicate that the committee was going to come back with the updated concept drawing, so
We're close.
when do you think you might have that ready, Kev?
Probably right after Herb's thing, so probably within a month to 6 weeks.
Okay. That'll work.
That's what we need that first, and it's off to that.
Well, and you've had the other one on the other side that you've been working on too, with Casey's. and
Yes.
That's been ongoing work too, so,
Yeah, that's been,
but it'd be nice to get that one underway.
yeah, I don't know if you ever saw this. Mike, you saw this, right? The swing out of the,
Yes,
that was the original one, then we decided to move it to the other side,
right.
and that's what we're
Because-
working on now. That was the preliminary one.
Yeah, I think we felt that it would be better if it was on the CVS side to do the loop.
Correct.
So because if you put it here, you take away all those parking spots. So our thought was to do the loop over there and then come down.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you park here, this is kind of like the main
Mhm.
entrance anyway. So then you can walk into the park, you know.
There's been some follow-up conversation, I bet you're aware of it, Kevin, with the private property owner directly behind Casey's. Because currently, he's got
Brett Askins.
2 outlets from his lot, and one of them cuts onto, actually, both of them cut onto the trail, if I'm not
No, one
mistaken.
does. The other one is a loading dock, which cuts into the trail. So that's
So-
cement loading dock.
I recall some conversation there where the property owner and Sean Reese talked about changing his cutout onto Central Street to more of a 90-degree angle. You're probably aware of that, but that
Correct.
would change.
That was
that
your
corner.
decision, right? Board of Selectmen, right?
I think so.
And that would make it
So
much
that's
safer.
one of the previous concepts, and it's going to be adjusted.
There's no anticipated article for town meeting
Nope,
in any way, shape, or form.
this is going a little bit slow. I think the weather's been part of the problem. It's getting the conceptual setup down there. We did do that with the train one day, and then with the caboose, and then with the access ramps for handicap.
It just
And
took
that
up
was
unbelievable
huge.
amount of space.
Anything else? Can we go on to 9 Green Street so my wife can get me home?
Coming up on the agenda.
Okay,
We can take it out of order, I have no objection.
all right,
Thank you for the update.
Why don't we keep him here and just go right to 9 Green Street, if you don't mind?
Sure, do you want to do that?
Sure.
We can skip over to 9 Green Street.
Jeff, you have the paperwork?
It is in the folder to be signed, yep.
Do you need it, Kevin?
No, that's just for you to sign the paperwork so we can get the,
Lord Associates.
what was it, 13.5?
Yes.
They can go down there and go through the schmutz that's in the soil and what that allows us to do down there. And now that the town owns the property, it's very, very important that we get it done as soon as possible.
That's it.
Their bid was 13.5, the high was like 55,000,
We took a vote on this last week.
so that went through well.
But you need to take a vote on the reserve fund transfer, I think. You voted to award the contract, but now you need to do a vote on the reserve fund transfer.
And just to let you know, we're gonna have a public meeting on that shortly to get initial input from residents and neighbors. And then want to come back to you and tell you what that is. And then we're gonna have another meeting, hopefully we get enough publicity in case anybody missed the first one. And after the report comes back from Lord Associates, and the committee has an idea what they wanna do, they're gonna bring it to you people, to see if you agree, disagree,
What's the time frame for Lord's work? Do you have an expectation?
within 6 weeks.
From beginning to end? Okay. I'll make a motion to approve a $13,500 reserve fund transfer to afford the environmental services of Lord Associates for 9 Green Street.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, this is all gonna be awesome for the town, awesome.
Do you want some from the select board there
Slow but
tomorrow night when you present to the finance committee for the justification for the reserve fund transfer, or do you?
Yes, that would be wonderful. Thank you for volunteering.
She was just saying, she wasn't gonna volunteer. She already went through the thing called last week.
Thank you, Mr. Conley.
Thank you for the time.
Thanks,
Thank
Glenn.
you. We've got some board business here, meeting minutes of January 22nd and January 27th.
So I was going to ask if we could postpone for next week a vote to approve the minutes, just so that I could plan some clarification on comments following the facilities manager candidate interviews.
We certainly can.
I had a quick, truth be told, I read them over this morning and did not have time to make the comments, prepare them for tonight
Okay.
to amend the meeting minutes. So if we can postpone that for next Monday, if that's.
For both sets of minutes or just one?
Those are my notes from this morning. So
Okay.
yes, I'm going to go with both sets of meeting
No
minutes,
problem.
please.
Not a problem, we can hold it.
Thank you.
Okay, AP Associates, emergency generator, Cedar Street, water mains. We have the contract. We need to sign it. Can you talk a little bit about this, Jeff?
These are both approved at town meeting, and they're ready to go. We've went out to bid, and we're ready to be signed.
Okay. And the total is 41,000?
No.
No, 41.
25.9.
Wonder what this is all about
I
here.
have the typo.
We have an emergency generator and the Cedar Street water main projects. The contract is prepared for your signatures. The first is a generator for the water treatment facility at Well 4. The cost will be, the contract is $25,900.
Let's see, I see right now. Okay,
Copy of the contract is in the agenda backup folder. The second contract is for the Cedar Street project. Bids have been evaluated, and the most competitive bid appears to be PJ Hayes in the amount of $41,190.
No, so it's 1 million, hold on.
yeah, I was gonna say this 41
No, this is not
can't be
right.
right.
It's $1,199,047
Yeah, this is not right.
was the lowest bid by PJ Hayes.
I was reading 41 million.
I
and
don't think that's.
That's
accurate.
not right.
This can't be right.
No.
According to the contract that's in the file for signature, the
Yep.
total amount of the bid is $146,200. The first one, as Mr. Ritter indicated, was $25,900.
And the second one is what again?
146.
Yep.
200.
200. Okay, gotta make sure we get that right.
That's for the engineering services for AP Associates.
Correct.
There is a second.
For PJ
form-
Haynes?
Yeah, right, the bid, to accept the bid by PJ Haynes. Haynes?
Haynes.
So there are 3 costs.
I think we might need some clarification on the second engineering contract here for 146,200. My understanding is that Sean's request
Yeah.
was for the bid for
My-
PJ Hayes and then a contract for AP Associates for the 24,000. The 146,200 is popping up as something new
Would
by
it
my
be
reading.
best to wait a week to do this, Jeff?
I think so.
Okay. We will do that. Well, a one-day alcoholic beverage license for St. Michael's Church has been requested. Do we have a motion?
Move to accept the one-day alcoholic beverage license for St. Michael's. They're holding an event at Upper Town Hall on March 28, 2020, and I'll just specify that this event would have been scheduled before we put the moratorium in place for new events in the Upper Town Hall.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Town meeting articles. Jeff, you wanna?
Well, it's only February 3rd.
Right.
Town meeting is on May 4th. So we have time to look at some of these articles. Some of them are, fairly aggressive. But I can quickly run through these articles for you. We have a 9 Green Street demolition and reconstruction article. These are all potential articles, by the way. They're not
Right.
cut in stone.
Right.
They're just like talking points at the moment, and a lot of these are going to get dropped. We have an article for elected officials and town clerk salary. We have an article for town hall septage.
And they've been working hard on that town hall septic. We should have something for the spring.
Again, I just want to reiterate that some of these are not going to be ready for May,
Right.
but they could end up in October.
Okay.
So just, these are things in the oven cooking,
Right.
so to speak. Accelerated water pipe replacement,
Yeah.
renovations and build a new DPW facility, sidewalk improvement plans.
And the DPW facility, I understand that Sean wasn't in favor of that. Is that correct?
Well, I'm not sure if he's not in favor of it. It's just not a high priority of his, I think, at the moment.
Okay.
So if the board wants to instruct me to remove something from this list, I'd be happy to do so.
Okay.
You just need to tell me to do it, and I'll do it.
All right. Do we have any consensus on that?
On the new DPW facility?
Yeah.
I think it's one of our top priorities. It came up in the fall as an item that was complementary to the other improvements we need to make in town. The current facilities are dreadful, and I plan on pulling together an argument for those when they're presented to the Finance Committee. I've done some research on both the Pleasant Street property and the Central Street property. They are dreadful locations in facilities, and the town needs to confront the fact that we need to build a new DPW facility. So I encourage us to keep it on there.
It would be helpful if we had the DPW director, if we're going to move forward with something that affects his job and his department, that he needs to be his number one cheerleader.
Of course.
And if we're going to do this work for him, we don't want him getting up there saying, "Oh, I can do. We don't really need it," or whatever. He needs to step up if he wants something from this town, because there was a poor performance in the October meeting. So we can talk about that later.
Moving on through the list here, senior center improvements. We have about $50,000, I think. This was part of our project needs list for our state senators and our state representative. But we'll put it in if you want for now. If we get funded, fine. We won't spend the money. We'll just revert it back to the general fund. Someone, I don't even know where this came from exactly, but someone suggested that the town look at adopting the BRAVE Act. And I'm not even sure what that is, but somehow I heard about it and I put it on the list. The wastewater treatment plant repairs. There's several infrastructural needs that need to be addressed at the wastewater treatment plant on Linden Street. And it's under $100,000, but it's something that's on the list.
Jeff, sorry, it's a little bit of like the year in review here. This came up with the budget for the wastewater treatment plant as well. You made a comment at the time that there were possible repairs. So who updates the board on what those repairs are to justify also this article? Like, how does that, can you just walk me through?
Well, Whitewater is our contractor over there, and they've come up with a proposal. I don't have it off the top of my head.
Okay.
As to the number, but it is less than $100,000. I know that.
Will they present it before the board?
Sure. I mean, we can invite them in and have them talk about it.
Well, it'd be nice to understand exactly what they're working on and what they're treating. I heard there were some issues there.
There are some pumps that are not in good shape and that need to be replaced. I'm not very conversant, actually, in wastewater treatment plants as to what exactly needs to get replaced, but that's why I lean on them to tell us what it is.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Again, on the tickler list, I have here a strategic plan for the community, for the town, a master plan for the town. All of these are really big thinking items that are going to require a lot of work.
I'm going to, advocate for this yet again. If we can get to the point where we have a tri-board meeting, if we can get to that before the Maytown meeting, it would be great to bring this up as an agenda item at that meeting.
Yeah. Fund an emergency disaster fund with marijuana revenues.
Later on, you call for the establishment of a stabilization fund from the host community agreements.
Yeah.
One can envision that to be one and the same.
Same thing, yep, ditto. Yep. So, accessory apartment, these are just like ideas that are out there more than anything else. but I want you to have an opportunity to bite on the apple and say, yeah, that's a direction we want to move in. Accessory apartments for non-family members, I guess. Duplex houses in AR zones. Tiny houses, I'm not sure what that means exactly.
Market-based affordable houses. So it wouldn't be for 55 and older, or it would be market-based affordable housing, like a ranch house or something like that, for people that we seem to have a less and less of, for people to get a start, or for someone to who's retiring that wants to sell their bigger house and move into something smaller.
Correct. This is definitely a real article. This is DPW, a new dual-purpose trackless MT7 tractor. Okay, so that's going to be probably around $150,000.
Why wouldn't that be on the fall warrant?
Because I think they need to order it over the summer.
I think Mr. Sparrow has something to say.
Yes, sir. About this, and he mentioned that he asked somebody about it who was asking for it, and because they need it as a mower, and it would be particularly in use in the summertime, and the current one isn't in great shape, and so mowing over the summer for parks particularly would be a challenge. That's my understanding.
Establish, transfer funds, and appropriate money for the Middlesex County Retirement Stabilization Fund. So we're establishing, transferring funds, and appropriating money into this new Middlesex County Retirement Stabilization Fund.
Ben and Vin, I talked to Ken about that last week, so he's informed about our intention on that and the HCA funds. Do you folks understand both of them? I think I talked to you about it, Vin, right?
You did, yeah. You talked to me about it too.
Okay.
I remember.
Okay, well, the next one it's just a double, you can take that out. Again, establish, transfer funds, and appropriate funds for, from the community, host community agreements stabilization fund. As you know, we received $100,000 on Friday that went into the general fund, so.
When Youth and Family Services presents their budget next week, this is going to come up again because of a line item that is in the professional services line of her budget. I met with her today, with Jackie Weiner today, and it's sort of how best to approach this. I'll be very curious to hear what the Finance Committee has to say. I was going to bring it, Ben, tomorrow when we meet and just kind of talk through the best way to approach it, but it would be the perfect thing to be funded out of something like a host community agreement stabilization fund, and so it's just sort of the timing on it and how to approach it. So
just be aware that those funds have a sunset on them. I mean, they're supposed to end at 5 years, I think.
Right, no, for sure. That's absolutely. Yep.
You don't want to build in something into the budget that's not sustainable.
Right. Well, she'll be able to present her proposal when she comes next week, but it is related to this HCA stabilization fund, and so.
So the next item is the TD Bank acquisition. The Board of Library Trustees are scheduled to meet with you next week, and we'll get an update on that and a report from our building inspector on the condition of that building and what's needed if we were to move in that direction. Washington and Woodland Lights LED. We received by petition a puppy mill ban protecting consumers and animals in Holliston. And then I have from Tina a traffic safety.
Yeah, do you want me to, I can
whatever
speak
that is, I'm not sure what it is.
Well, so the Traffic Advisory Committee has created, they requested a placeholder in order for that committee to do the work of making recommendations to the board. They need some traffic monitoring and possibly enforcement equipment. As a perfect example, you're talking about a stealth radar system that allows them to respond to resident complaints that are coming in by petition and get that kind of data. So it's equipment like that that allows the work of the committee to be done in order to make recommendations to the board. So they've requested a placeholder. So that's what that is for now.
Okay. Radio operability improvement project. This is another one that's before our delegation at the State House. However, it would be prudent to try to fund this. The police chief and the fire chief are both in support of this project. It's going to substantially improve our public safety response and communications. So more about that later. I'll be inviting the both chiefs to come in and present to the selectmen about this. Current year transfer article, this is a standard article. This is where we would look at the funding of or transferring of funds for the managerial chart. And finally, Fafford Street acceptance and layout. That's Mohawk, Indian Circle, and Mayflower. Again, I don't want anyone to overreact. These are just like talking items.
Sure.
At the moment. A lot of these are gonna get dropped.
We just added one.
We just added one. What was that
The
one?
golf club.
The golf course, yeah. No, yeah.
And there may be the petition coming from the 5th graders.
I know nothing about that yet, until it hits my desk.
Right, okay, okay.
That's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Any questions from anyone?
On the articles?
Any questions?
On the articles?
John?
On the articles, no.
Okay.
Not at this time.
Next up is facilities manager position. Jeff, do you want to talk about your conversation with Mr. Peasy?
Yeah, I mean, we had been working, we met with Mr. Peasy probably a week ago now, and meaning internal staff, and we talked about the position, and we reviewed the position and what was expected of the position. 2 days later, I sent him a letter, an employment letter, offering him the position formally and asking for a start date. He said he would get back to me the following day. And when he did get back to me the following day, he said that he had recently encountered a family emergency that he needed to address and would not be in a position to accept the position. And that's essentially it, and that's where we're at.
Okay. I would suggest that maybe we interview the second and third candidates, which would be Mr. Lefter and Mr. Keast. To think about those two. The issue, and we had open public meetings when we interviewed, so the issue with Mr. Lefter with the second interview was his resume wasn't accurate in a couple of areas that concerned me. One of them had to do with present employment. He hadn't worked for about a year, but it said that he had until present. And we discovered it's not until present. And then his education, he did not have a degree that was originally thought by the search committee. He had a certificate of facility manager, which is a lot different. We're looking for someone that would be an executive for this position, that would have. We were interested in an engineering background education, as it says in the job description, and so I think the only two viable candidates that we had left was Mr. Lefter and Mr. Keast. I wonder, since we've already met with Mr. Lefter a second time, if we should do the same for Mr. Keast and then make a decision between the two of them. I'm not sure. We could bring them both in again, too. That might be helpful.
Yeah.
Your thoughts?
Yeah, a lot. Obviously, it's disappointing that Mr.
Yeah.
Pizzi is in the situation that he's in and had to make the decision that he had to make. I think he was a bit of a unicorn candidate and a bit of a stretch for this position in the sense that he had such tremendous experience with much larger buildings, projects, and staffing. So we got close.
Yeah.
And then life took over for him. So that's very unfortunate for more so him than us, but certainly for us. But I have no reason to believe that starting over will result in any different set of skills or experiences among the candidates who would then apply. We had a very robust group of candidates apply originally. We had, was it 12 or 14, Jeff?
15?
15, I think it was.
15, so we went from 15 down to 5 that were sort of screened out by a subcommittee, and then we got down to 2. So it was a thorough process. And then I went back and reviewed my notes and comments from the interviews, and there are strengths from all of the 5. And I think particularly what makes the most sense, given the process by which we got to Mr. Pizzi, is to go back and look at number 3 and number 2 and number 3.
Right.
That makes the most sense to me. Again, I'll say it again, to put it back out for a new round of applications, I don't see bringing different results.
Yeah.
We had a good process in the first place that brought us the candidates that we interviewed, and they had strengths.
Yes.
So I am comfortable taking a second look at the 3rd candidate from the original round of 5. I'm not sure how I feel about interviewing Mr. Lefter again. He went through 2 interviews.
Right. And he's still a strong candidate.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think that there were strengths among the 5, and to get to a 1, 2, and 3, I'm very comfortable with that. So I guess my thought would be that we bring back the 3rd candidate and have that individual go through a second interview. So now we have parity between the interview process.
Right.
And then decide from there.
Okay.
Those are my thoughts as I prepared for tonight. But it's an
Thoughts,
open
John?
board discussion, so.
So, a couple of thoughts. I generally agree with Tina's remarks as well. Candidate Pizzi was strong. Candidate Lefter, I thought fell short of my expectations for what the position should include. I work with individuals who kind of handle both kind of models of facility management, the manager and then the coordinators, and he fell squarely after hearing his second interview in the coordinator realm. One of the things that struck me from his interview that was something that's a big part of this job is the ability to do an assessment and to take from it the information that you glean and then push it forward for action, either in the form of contracts, money, what have you. And I believe that candidate was more, give me that plan or give me that report and I'll execute what's going on. So there was a bit of a disconnect, meaningful disconnect between his skills, his experience as somebody in the field and what I was looking for. 'Cause I agree with your words. It's an executive level position. It's a department head. You need to have somebody who could to do it all. So I didn't think after interviewing him that I would recommend him for hire. I think I made that remark in open session. So I at that point have to stop because I encounter a conflict, which I announced when you folks went to the first round of interviews. So I'll bow out of what you all decide next, but my reaction to the candidacy of Mr. Lefter stands from when we saw him 2 or 3 weeks ago. So I yield to you to handle the next round.
I'm back to you now.
Well, and so, again, because it's an open conversation here, among the 3 of us, that then makes me feel like the best decision is made with the full board, is my opinion. I respect why you make that decision. I think the best service to the town and the departments that the facilities manager would be working with would be to have a full board make the decision to choose the candidate. So I don't know how we resolve the conflict that leads you to the decision to not participate in the second round of interviews for the 3rd candidate and yet still have a board vote of the 3 of us. That's the conflict I'm left with.
Can you repeat that last part? I
What makes the most sense to me is to have all three of us vote for who the facilities manager is.
Right.
That is where I feel we best serve the town and the departments that this
Well, we
person
can take a
would be working
vote now on Lefter, if he's somebody that the board wants to see or consider as a candidate going forward for hire.
with. Mhm.
And then we could re-interview the first 4 again,
Whoa.
if you wanted to.
I'm comfortable with 2 and 3, making a decision between the second and third candidate.
Okay. Your feelings on Lefter?
I would prefer, my preference would be that we interview the third candidate and then have another discussion and take a vote after, because in that way, if John wants to remove himself from the interview process of the third candidate, fair enough, respect
Right.
that. We then can conduct the interview, we can compare our notes and
Okay.
deliberate, and then we can bring the 2 back and have a full board
Okay.
vote with John. I think we can do it that way. I'm a little lost here because this has not gone the way I
I'm quite
thought.
comfortable ethically to cast my vote for Mr. Lefter's candidacy. I'm making that known now,
Sure,
but I don't know
understood.
how it describes with you guys. So I think your path is clear. It makes sense to me if that's the way we want to do it.
I would not take that vote now. I would want to interview
Sure.
You
the
wanna do
third
the
candidate
interview.
again, yes.
Sure. Makes
Can you
sense.
arrange for an interview, Jeff?
So, just so I'm clear, you want me to invite Mr. Keston back?
Keist.
Keist.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
Yes.
thank
I'll
you.
be meeting with the chair and Ms. Hine.
And then we'll go from there. Nothing's easy. Let's see. Mr. Ritter, we just received a donation of 10,000. Do you want to tell us about that?
That is a donation from the Middlesex
Savings?
Savings Bank. And I believe it was for, in the amount of $10,000
Was it for the fire
for
department again?
No.
the police department.
I know. I was just joking because the chief is here.
Yep.
You know, he's just got that face. Everybody wants to give him gifts. Unbelievable.
I
We need a
move
motion
to
to
accept the $10,000 gift from the Middlesex Savings Bank to the Holliston Police Department's gift fund.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Is there any other business that you would like to do?
I would just put this out to the board for your thoughts on approaching the moderator and the town clerk about ideas that the moderator had actually brought up back during his election for ways to encourage more participation in town meeting. So there were some ideas that he shared on the campaign trail for the position that I found very intriguing to, again, get better participation and engagement at town meeting. And so I'm just looking for your thoughts before I go ahead and pick up the phone and give him a call to say, hey, can we explore some of those ideas? I'd be happy to help. I would engage the town clerk as well, of course, but between the two of them to explore those ideas.
Sounds great. Thank you. I'm sure Mr. Ritter appreciates it too. Anything else, John?
No, sir. Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. It is 8:48. Thank you for coming, and thank you for listening.